Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 18. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com, and welcome to Monday and welcome to Week 1 of the 2023 NFL season. The Pittsburgh Steelers just 6 days away from their debut against the San Francisco 49ers, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time at Acrisure Stadium. First NFL game will be Thursday between the Chiefs and the Lions. We are recording this, just a quick note, Dave and I, on Sunday. So if anything major happens from now until then, just a heads up there. But Dave, welcome to Week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And a bunch of great college football action that we got to watch on Saturday. Look, Deion Sanders keeping receipts, Alex. Boy, you got to be impressed with what they did, especially coming out of the season they had last year, and just look, it was a fantastic weekend overall, and now I'm looking forward to getting into the NFL season starting this week, and interested to find out what happens with the 49ers and a guy like Joey Bosa. Surely, or Nick Bosa, yeah. Surely they're going to get him signed, right?
You would think so, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe we can mention a comment or two that Kyle Shanahan said about that. Yeah, great action of college football, although I'm currently watching Rutgers and Northwestern, and I can say it is one of the games that was played this weekend, Dave. That's about all I can say for this snooze fest right now.
It's a game that deserves to be played on Sunday.
Yes, this is the sleep on the couch kind of game. But Dave, let's get back into it. Pittsburgh Steelers not sleeping this weekend as they rounded out their practice squad, and so I want to talk about that. And then in just a little bit, we'll get to a roundtable with Josh Carney and Joe Clark to get their thoughts on the Steelers 2023 season and their season predictions, and some pretty spicy takes in this one. So stay tuned for that in just a few minutes. But wanted to mention, you and I, Dave, at the top here, the final names added to Pittsburgh's practice squad. 3 names in running back Quadre Olison, former Pitt product, linebacker Tariq Carpenter, which I believe was already mentioned, running back, fullback Xander Horvath, former Los Angeles Charger and Purdue Boilermaker, and I believe that is the list of new names added to round out the Pittsburgh Steelers 16-man practice squad.
Yeah, look, I mean, you already got a lot of excitement about this 53-man roster, the way it currently sits at the time of us recording this. And you look at the last 3 names added to this, combined with the previous 13. Monty Pottybomb, who? Look, we asked the guys later on in this roundtable session here that's attached to this opening, kind of guys that they're most excited about, and practice squad as a whole. For a practice squad for what it is, I think it's a nice mix and match of guys. Obviously, a few rookies in here, a couple first, second year guys, and handful more experienced guys. I like, which way I was going with. I like those I like those fullbacks and those tight ends, and
what a great name, Xander Horvath.
Yeah, that guy sounds like a fullback there. And man, there's some great clips of him. Caught a couple of passes, I think, for touchdowns with the Chargers. You go back to his Purdue tape and start messing around with that, and we're going to see this guy elevated a time or two, I think.
You're coming in hot today.
Yeah, I'm bringing it all out right now. I think I haven't got into a special teams tape or anything like that, but just looks like a guy just willing to do everything for you there. So, and look, Tariq Carpenter, a very athletic guy coming out of Georgia Tech, and the question is he going to be a safety? Is he going to be a linebacker? I think the Packers made the move from him from safety to linebacker. I don't think we know exactly what the Steelers look at him as, but just because of that position flexibility overall, it allows you to do some certain things with him as a practice squad player overall. So some interesting and look, Quadri Olesen, obviously a Pitt product, has played some snaps in the NFL there. The only thing I thought we would see as part of this unit is a more, truly center capable guy, but by them not having one right now on the practice squad, I think that lends itself to how confident they are in what they have and the center capable guys that they have on the 53-man roster. So I'm over that aspect of it. I was a little bit surprised once again that they don't have a center on there, but I think it speaks to their confidence of what they have in Cole and obviously Nate Herbig, and even to a lesser degree, God forbid if you need it, Spencer Anderson, and you do have a couple other guys on that offensive line who have taken snaps at center in an NFL game, albeit not much. And then, go back to the college days with James Daniels. If you got into a pinch, you could obviously throw him in there.
Sure. Why not? Why add a center when you want to give the guys you have reps? I mean, Herbig's going to need some reps, and Anderson probably gets a couple reps here and there. It's tough in season and practice, but I'm sure these guys will be working that, and they've been in camp. So let's just go ahead and have those guys do their thing as opposed to trying to, consider any sort of outside name at this point. Horvath is kind of cut from that Pottebaum cloth. He was a linebacker turned running back, fullback, had great testing out of Purdue, and he's got good feet for his size and frame. And, I did the scouting report on him 2 years ago and didn't put a draftable grade, but I said he was an interesting undrafted free agent, and he spent some time with the Chargers. And I hadn't really followed what he'd been doing with the Chargers, but apparently some Chargers fans unhappy with Horvath, being taken by Pittsburgh here. So that's a guy that, we'll see what happens, but Pittsburgh likes their backs big, and Horvath offers that, and Olesen offers that as well. So when it comes to the backfield, they want size, and they added 2 guys who fit the bill.
Absolutely. And, once again, as far as practice squads go, I mean, look, some of these guys are going to come and go, and just the overall aspect of the season and the needs at certain positions will cause this group to change. But I mean, a good 10 of these guys after the season's over might have spent the whole season on the practice squad, and you're going to see some elevations at some point from some of these guys for whatever reason here. But nice looking group for this 16.
Yeah, I think so, especially in the secondary. A bunch of corners, slot-capable guys added, Anthony Brown and Josiah Scott. So, that there's a ton of slot corners on this entire team, whether it's 53 or the practice squad. So I don't know exactly how these things are going to shake out, but there are a lot of options there for the Steelers to consider.
Absolutely.
You had mentioned top of the show about Nick Bosa, and 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan was speaking with some 49ers radio hosts earlier today, or recently, sometime over the weekend, and, said he's going to do everything he can to get Bosa there for week 1. Unless that means meeting his asking price, I'm not sure what Shanahan exactly is going to do, but, my assumption is, and probably yours as well, is that Bosa will be there for the 49ers game. The question becomes, how much will he play? What kind of snap count will he be on?
Yeah, and look, we're recording this on Sunday, so we might be at the mercy of missing something here. I almost wonder if this will get announced Sunday night or Monday morning, because look, you coming out, I think most teams let their players off for this weekend, except for the teams obviously playing on Thursday night. I think the Chiefs and Lions are obviously hard at it. And, I think the rest of the teams, Monday is typically regarded as kind of a bonus day overall there. And I don't know what the Steelers or the 49ers schedule is for Tuesday, but generally, that's considered an off day there. Both teams obviously will get hard at it, back to work on Wednesday there. I would think that they would get something done with Bosa before then. And even if they do, I think it becomes an interesting topic of, look, I mean, and Shanahan said this, he expects him. He's been in football shape since 2.5 or something, long 2.5 years old or something like that. And I expect him to be in good physical condition. But how much football? What will this do to a week from Sunday? And will you be forced to kind of protect him from himself, if you will? And is this something that could, look, not having Bosa on the field for any snaps is a positive for your offense overall. Mm-hmm. And I think this is just one of maybe a few aspects here of this ahead of this matchup week 1 for the Steelers that's building, kind of a perfect storm situation here. And look, what if they don't get him signed? I know a lot of people would go against that, and even I'll be surprised if they don't get him signed. But what if they indeed don't get him signed until much later in the week, or don't get him signed at all by next Sunday?
Sure. I think regardless, even if he signs as we're recording this, he's going to be limited in some capacity. The guy hasn't practiced since January, and I'm sure he's staying in shape and, conditioning on the side. And he's, Nick Bosa, reigning defensive player of the year. He probably doesn't need as much as, some lesser player would. But, Kyle Shanahan even made a nod to that and said we have to think about him long-term as well. They got a long season to go through. It's an 18-week, 17-game, slog. And so it's not all about just winning week 1, especially against an AFC opponent. So, I think there'll be a snap count there, but that would still mean that I assume Bosa is going to play on third downs, passing downs, which is still the biggest way he can impact the game. So while Pittsburgh may get some benefit by not facing him on 1st and 10 or 2nd and 7, third and 5, you're going to still have to deal with Bosa with I should say, Dan Moore and Shaquille Marcour for.
Stay out of 3rd and long.
Yeah, that's easy to drop on the whiteboard, but you're probably going to find yourself in that situation or time or two in this game. So we'll keep you posted. I think Bosa will be there as well, but I think he will be on some sort of snap count.
I do as well.
All right, Dave, anything else to talk about? Anything else we're missing? I think we kind of hit on the big things overall. So unless you have anything else you want to add here real quick, we can get to the roundtable with Joe Clark and Josh Carney. We'll take a pause and come right back. And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And as we just mentioned a moment ago, a bit of a Steelers Depot roundtable here for this Monday to get you guys ready for the week 1 kickoff on Sunday between the Pittsburgh Steelers and San Francisco 49ers. Joining us today should be some familiar names and voices to the site and to the show in Josh Carney and Joe Clark. We wanted Jonathan Heitritter here. He could not make it, but we'll have him at some point, probably in the near future, to get his thoughts on the Steelers season. So Josh, Joe, been with the site for quite some time. Josh especially. Joe's been a fast rising member of the Steelers Depot ladder, so really happy to have both you guys on. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on again, guys.
Yeah, sure thing. Joe, how about you?
Yeah, excited to be here. Looking forward to it.
And Joe's the bachelor life now. He's moved out. He's got his own place. So congratulations to that. And we're really thankful for all that you guys have done during a very busy August and, of course, getting ready for the season. So, Dave, let's jump on in. I can just kind of ask the overall question if you want, Dave, to Joe and Josh about your feelings about the team. Was there anything more specific that you wanted to lead off with, though, Dave?
I tell you what, let's lead off with this. Both of you, your biggest concern coming out of this year's draft, and is that a same concern now about this 2023 Steelers team, or has that changed? Is there a biggest concern now? So really, your biggest concern coming out of the draft, and is that the same concern now, or is there, or what is your biggest concern now?
My biggest concern coming out of the draft was the edge depth. I wrote the article. Steelers were making a mistake putting Nick Pickett at the edge position, and that has completely blown up in my face. And good thing that happened. But I was very concerned. This was obviously coming out of the draft before they signed Marcus Golden. But now with those two in Golden and Herbig behind TJ Watt, now it's Highsmith, I feel very, very good about that position overall. I think it's arguably the strength of the team right now. Now that we're a week away from the season, I know this is going to sound a little different from what others might think, but I'm kind of worried about depth at safety. DeMonte Casey and Keanu Neal, they're solid pieces on paper, but those guys struggle to stay healthy historically. There's not much there behind Minkah Fitzpatrick from a true free safety style. I know that Casey has done it before, but I don't know that I feel overly comfortable if Minkah were to go down, if sliding Casey to free and putting Keanu Neal at strong safety full time. That doesn't give me a comforting feeling. And Miles Killebrew is just a special teams guy at this point. So that's my biggest concern right now, is the safety depth.
Okay, fair enough. Joe, same set of questions to you.
Yeah, so coming out of the draft, I think it had to probably be inside linebacker depth. I mean, I was kind of really banking on Cole Holcomb to have a good year, and that's really what it looked like they're going to have to do. But bringing in Alexander and the way that group looked in the preseason, that fear is pretty much gone away. Like, I'm actually really excited about this unit. I think it's going to be an impressive group. Definitely better than what they've had in years past. And then as far as my biggest concern, I mean, it's a basic one, but it's really just like, can the offense carry that momentum they showed in the preseason and make that jump into the regular season and keep playing the way they played? Because, I mean, we saw it against the Bills' first team. It was mostly backups against Tampa and Atlanta. So I really want to see how much of a jump they take going into the regular season, because that's really going to be, I think, one of the deciding factors of just how far this team can go.
When you look at this team, really starting back in February, March, and all like that, and then fast forward and through, and Alex and I have talked about this several times. It almost seems like you couldn't have drawn out a better offseason here overall. And look, I mean, doing this as long as I've done it, I try to not get too high or too low during certain aspects of the offseason and all, but I don't think, I mean, I told Alex, I think even 12-year-old Dave's fanboys coming out, I think more so than normal when you look at this team. What has been the biggest surprise, I think, overall? What has been the biggest surprise, as far as the takeaway goes about this team, let's say, since the draft?
That's a good question. I think the easy answer is probably just the way the offense has looked. I know obviously training camp is one thing, but then you have the 5 drives in the preseason, 5 touchdowns, explosive plays, an explosive play on the ground that finds the end zone, something we haven't seen in a while. I think that's the easy answer. But for me, what's been the most surprising, quite honestly, has been that inside linebacker room. I liked the move to sign Elandon Roberts. I think he fits exactly what they want at the Buck. But Cole Holcomb and Quan Alexander, the way that they've looked at times here in training camp and obviously into the preseason has really been surprising. And that group feels really solid overall, kind of like what Joe said earlier. But yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is that offense, and you're getting that fanboy coming out in me a little bit, that younger fanboy with this offense. Like, wow, it could legitimately be an NFL offense at this point. Nothing like what we've seen the last 2 years, where the only time they have success is when the quarterback kind of goes off script and up tempo. This feels like a group that's going to attack the middle of the field. The offensive line looks really good in the run game, so there's going to be balance there. And you've just got this quarterback that, instills confidence in everything that they're doing right now. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I think that's the biggest adjective to describe Kenny heading into this season is just, and we've talked about it, really since he was drafted, just about him and nothing seems to phase him aspect. And then, we've heard the reports of how hard he's worked during the offseason, went back and watched every incompletion and obviously his offseason work with Tony Rass. Nothing seems to really, fluster this guy from what we've seen so far. Now, I still contend that we'll learn pretty much, a lot more by through the week 6 of the season. But you look back at this preseason and on, it's hard not to go ahead and draw the line in the sand and say that this kid has arrived here. Joe, what has been the biggest surprise for you about this team since the draft?
Mine's really just been that everybody's been as advertised. I feel like we haven't had any major letdowns, like somebody that we thought would look good hasn't looked good. I mean, the rookie class, obviously Herbig had a monster preseason. Joey Porter Jr. looked solid. I mean, Dan Moore beat up Broderick Jones, but it's not because Broderick Jones struggled in any major capacity. Even the free agent additions, Roberts was a monster against Atlanta. Holcomb's looked solid. Alexander's been as advertised. Everybody they've brought in has pretty much been, what we hoped and expected there to be. There's been nobody that's like, that kind of, I'm a little worried about him. I don't know about that move. I mean, it's still early, but throughout training camp, the preseason, there's really just been nobody that I think has been a real major disappointment. And that's something that, at least right now, is worth getting excited about.
If anything, a few of them have over delivered. You know, you got like Spencer Anderson. I mean, we knew he was versatile, but just how versatile, and would we see it during the preseason? And obviously, you would have liked to seen more of Joey Porter Jr. But in his limited time on the field, he looked good. And then Nick Herbig, man, you want to be thankful about being wrong about somebody. I mean, if anything. The biggest surprise is that a couple of these kids are seemingly over delivering. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I think it's a good segue, Joe. There's 19 new names on the Steelers' initial roster that weren't Pittsburgh Steelers a year ago. And as you said, a lot of these guys have impressed. And the most recent addition we'll get eyes on, once this team practices with Desmond King. So, Josh, I want to start with you, though. Of all these new additions, whether it was free agency, trade, draft, whatever the case is, what addition do you think will have the singular biggest impact on this 2023 Pittsburgh Steelers squad?
If you would have asked me before they added Desmond King, I would have said Isaac Seumalo, but just looking at King's body of work, slot corner, I think he solidifies the outside corner depth a bit. I think he played over 500 snaps on the outside last year in Houston. I think that is a significant piece that they added to this group. It was a position that, we were all concerned about coming into training camp, and not that, Chandon Sullivan and Elijah Riley did anything wrong. I thought that they solidified the group overall, but adding that type of talent in Desmond King, a guy that can play in the slot, he can play outside. He's good coming downhill and run support. He's got good ball skills. I think that's going to be a guy that kind of changes the outlook in the secondary a little bit. I think it's going to take him, a couple of weeks to get his feet underneath him and get up and running in the scheme overall. But I mean, that's a guy that they've had their eye on since 2017. I know, Alex, you did the piece from the Senior Bowl. He said he wanted to be a Steeler then. It just took a few years, but he steps into the black and gold again, this time at the NFL level at a great time for him with a clear-cut role. And I think he's really just going to change the outlook and the shape on the field at times with this secondary, with his experience and his overall abilities.
Yeah, I think it's a fair choice. I'm going to still stick with Seumalo, though. I think he's flown under the radar at left guard, but it's just such a serious upgrade and kind of that missing link along the O-line. Joe, same question to you. Many additions, draft picks, for agency, the recent names that have just signed, but who do you think will have the single biggest impact of these new Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Seumalo too. I mean, on the field, he's a road grader. He's a technician. We saw him open up the hole in that Jaylen Warren run. He's immediately the best offensive lineman on the team. But I think that off the field aspect of him as a leader, we heard throughout training camp, Mason Cole and James Daniels kind of talked about, how he's a guy that, he teaches them after every single play. They talked about watching his tape when he was with the Eagles. He's been on a lot of really, really talented offensive lines in Philadelphia. He's somebody that just brings a new voice to that room and a new energy for what's a pretty young offensive line. Even though like some guys like Daniels and Okorafor have some experience, they're not all that old and they haven't played on like any really, really accomplished lines like Seumalo has. So I think just his body of work brings the unit up, not only for his work on the field, but his work off the field is just going to elevate the level of play across the offensive line. Give Kenny Pickett more time to open up holes for Harrison Warren. Really, really excited about him this season.
Dave, anything else you wanted to ask?
What if I want to try to keep it balanced here because we sure are painting this thing very, very positive right now with good reason. But what would you say? I mean, it was a fantastic offseason by Omar Khan. Once again, I don't think you could have painted this or drawn it out any better. But what would you say if you had to choose what a biggest maybe mistake or thing that Omar Khan didn't get done from February to now? Josh?
I kind of want to go to what something he did that might have been a mistake, and just hear me out on this. It might be the Larry Ogunjobi contract. I mean, the foot issue again. I know that we all liked that signing at the time, but I mean, pretty quickly in training camp, the injury pops up. He hasn't practiced since the middle of August. He didn't play in any preseason games. I mean, that is a real concern. There's some money tied up there. they were banking on him being a key guy opposite Cam Hayward. That's really the only thing where I'm like, could that have been a mistake? That's all. Again, that's in hindsight because I had nothing bad to say about the signing at the time. But just the way it's kind of played out here this summer is a little bit of a concern for me. Outside of that, honestly, something he didn't do, I would probably go back to what I talked about earlier, just adding another safety that could be that true free safety with some experience behind Minkah. I was thinking, honestly, that they would go out and kind of take a look at some of these names that might be out there, and take a flyer on a guy. But I think maybe that shows the confidence they have that Patrick Peterson could slide into a safety role at times for them. I would have liked to have seen another vet added there in the secondary at the safety position because, the two guys in KZ and Neal just have me a little concerned with their injury history. And then in turn, that's going to put more on Minkah overall.
Fair enough. Joe, if you had to point out something, a mistake or something you would have liked to seen Omar Khan do from February until now, what would it be?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to go. I mean, it's not even that big of a deal because Anthony McFarland Jr. did look good in the preseason. He's running the ball and working out of the backfield, had a couple good pass block reps. But I think it's just not addressing that RB3 spot with, more of a proven veteran, somebody who can be a little more of a threat on special teams. And even Harris had the foot injury last year. Jalen Warren missed a game. If one of those guys goes down, you're thrusting McFarland into a much bigger role. And his rookie year is the most he played. We haven't seen him really have to take on a bigger role over the last couple of years. So how effective is he going to be in case something happens? I guess you can go, and if it does, then you can maybe add a body. But I'm a little concerned about not adding more of a proven guy in that spot. Again, it's nitpicky. He had a great offseason, but if there's anything that he didn't do that I would have liked to see him do, I think it's definitely adding another running back to really compete and maybe overtake McFarland for that RB3 job.
So we're being super we're dealing with some first world problems here, right?
Well, I would just say I think there's an obvious answer to that question, and this is just one man's opinion, but I think letting Cam Sutton walk to Detroit was a mistake.
Yeah.
Until you come back, you're going to feel some of that pinch. And I know that replacing with Peterson, he's going to offer some value, but Sutton, younger, you're going to get more mileage out of him. There's less questions about Peterson shifting around for the first time in his career. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. It's hard to say. And I know he was a bit cheaper than Sutton, but not significantly so. And so I think losing him out of the gate was a surprise and was a mistake.
All right. I'll still kind of contend that I was, I'm still interested in this backup center thing. Obviously it looks like Nate Herbig's going to be that guy right now. But heck, they didn't even sign up a backup center to the practice squad. At least this initial 16-man unit here. I guess my biggest concern really overall is not that they didn't go out and address it. It's just I wonder if Nate Herbig can be that guy. Sure. And here's the hope in us not having to find out the answer to that. So I understand why they have gone the way that they have done, gone here. Obviously Herbig has some limited experience there, but that's something I was rattling the cage about most of the offseason is it can't be Kendrick Green, and thankfully it's not. McCollum, you kind of knew that probably wasn't going to pan out there. And then, I would probably feel better had Nate Herbig played more snaps during the preseason there, but I would probably still list that. And once again, here, we're kind of talking about first world problems here because we named off the Ogunjobi contract. We named off, a backup free safety. We named off a backup running back. We're talking about, above average, I guess you'd say, cornerback, a veteran cornerback not being signed. And then I'm talking about a backup center. So, are we nitpicking? Yeah, but it's our job to kind of ask and discuss these questions, right?
Let me ask a question about the 53-man roster construction. Was it the right move for Pittsburgh? And Joe, I'll start with you. Was it right for Pittsburgh to keep Gunnar Olszewski over Zach Gentry?
I think it was. I mean, I wasn't high on Gunnar coming into the training camp of the preseason, but he put a good body of work on tape. I like that he wasn't great with it last year, the fumbling issues, but he has the return flexibility if Austin doesn't work out, or if I don't know if McFarland's going to start to open up the season as the kick returner, but Olszewski has the special teams flexibility, and I think he offers more than Gentry too on coverage. Gentry wasn't a huge contributor on the coverage special teams aspect of things, so I like adding Olszewski for that aspect, especially because Gentry's role is a little bit of a duplicate with Darnell Washington in the fold too. I'm just not sure how much you could have really gotten out of Gentry. I mean, we know that he seems like a great locker room guy. His best friend with Freiermuth. So that aspect of it, I think they're going to miss. But in terms of on the football field, I think Olszewski definitely showed enough to prove that he was worthy of a roster spot. And I think he's going to offer a little bit more upside in some of those other facets of the game than Gentry would have.
Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Joe. I think that Gunnar absolutely earned his roster spot. I thought he came in, had a really strong camp. He had a really strong preseason overall. Just did a lot of the little things that the Steelers asked him to do. That's the kind of guy you want on the back end of your roster. With Gentry, him and Darnell Washington are really similar right now, at least those inline blocking guys. I think obviously Washington's a lot better in that area of the game. And I mean, Gentry just doesn't offer you much as a receiver or all that much that's game changing, special teams wise. So I was surprised though that they did cut Gentry. I always thought there was a possibility as soon as they drafted Darnell Washington, and that we saw Gentry only got $152,000 guaranteed on his 1 year deal. But yeah, I think Gunnar earned it. I think they did a good job keeping Gunnar. Overall, he is that insurance policy for Calvin Austin III. And again, he's just that guy that, the quarterbacks they trust him, and he's going to do legitimately anything the coaching staff asks him to do. And like I said, that's a guy that you want on the back half of your roster to kind of lead the way from a veteran standpoint too.
Dave, I know you had them cutting Gentry, but I don't know if I've even asked you, would you have preferred them to keep 4 tight ends, or are you good with Gunnar being that 6 wide receiver?
If you're asking me a 1-for-1, which one is a better fit for the roster between Gunnar and Gentry alone, it's Gunnar in my opinion. Plain and simple. You get more special teams aspect. You get, as Joe said, you get an experienced return guy. God forbid that you need it. Look, he is what he is on offense. He's not going to be a guy that catches. He'd be lucky to catch 10. You hope you don't have to put him in a situation where he has to catch more than 10 balls during the season. But if you did have to even throw him out there on offense offensively, he gives you effort, at least in the blocking game, and depending on who he's asked to block, you're going to get the effort out of him. Sometimes he'll win, sometimes he'll get thrown into the backfield because of his size. But just if we're talking 1-for-1, who belongs on this roster, I think it's Gunnar.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Dave, did you have anything else? What other direction? I think you had some prediction type questions you wanted to ask the guys.
Well, first and foremost, Alex and I rounded out the practice squad at the top of the show with 3 more signings, I think, since the last show there, in Tariq Carpenter, Xander Horvath, and Quadri Olison. When you look at this 16 man practice squad as a whole, A, what do you think about the 16? And B, who's the guy on the practice squad that you're most excited about?
I kind of like the practice squad overall, but it's a practice squad in general. There's really not one that stands out to me. I mean, I'll throw 2 names out here that I like. In general, and names that I did some work on pre-draft process. That would be Simi Fehoko. That receiver with that type of height, weight, speed, the explosive playmaking ability he had in college really impressed me. I think I've done similar to what Alex has done here in recent years and kind of move away from the receivers that don't really create separation. But Fehoko, his tape was good at Stanford. He was a contested catch guy. He stretched the field. The testing numbers were really impressive, and he never was really given a chance in Dallas. And I think having that type of guy on the roster is going to be, on the practice squad is going to be key to kind of develop and have that, maybe that future backup to George Pickens, because they're similar body type, similar testing numbers. Obviously, Fehoko doesn't have the insane body control and the insane hands that George Pickens does. But I liked that flyer that they took. And I also like Tariq Carpenter. I mean, I thought he would kind of have a solid career just from that safety linebacker hybrid role that he had at Georgia Tech. He was a really good defensive piece for them, and it just hasn't quite clicked in the NFL. So getting him from Green Bay and getting him on the practice squad, I believe he's just going to be a linebacker now. Is that accurate? I didn't know if he was still going to be that linebacker safety hybrid.
They list him, I think, as a safety or defensive back, but I wouldn't be surprised if they explore more of that inside linebacker. But we'll see. I think we'll learn as it goes on here.
But yeah, that's a name that when they signed him, I was like, okay, that I like that a lot. I think he's a good athlete. He's a physical player overall, and it was a good flyer to take. But I mean, they did a good job kind of rounding out the practice squad. But like you pointed out, they don't have a center there, so I think they have one true center on the entire roster, 53 and the practice squad. So that's a little concerning. That's probably my only gripe with the practice squad overall.
Joe, what do you think about the practice squad? Is there one name that sticks out above the others?
Yeah, like Josh said, I like Carpenter. He was a good special teamer for Green Bay last year. That versatility, if he does come down and play linebacker, can be a good coverage linebacker. So he's a guy that I like a lot. And then another guy outside the organization they had was Josiah Scott. He picked off 2 balls for the Eagles last year. And I'm kind of a fan of, if there's a guy that has some NFL success and shows he can do something, throw him on the practice squad, especially with slot corner. I mean, you can never have too many darts just to throw at slot corner and hope one of them hits, especially with, where the Steelers have been in that position in recent years. Maybe, he's a guy that they can develop into becoming a solid piece. I mean, now they got King, they got Sullivan, they have Elijah Riley. So they got 3 guys, you can mix and match there now. That doesn't even include Peterson if he comes in. Down the line, it's a position that they've, in the last couple of seasons since Hilton's left, and even then he's struggled in coverage, where they haven't really had a lot of stability or success. So I kind of like having somebody there that they can work with and develop, and maybe be another name in the quarterback room down the line.
All right, let's fast forward to January and the annual Joe Green Rookie of the Year award. Who wins it? Josh?
I'm going to say Joey Porter Jr., and that feels like a slight cop-out, but because I think he's going to have the most playing time, especially early on. I just think he's going to be an impactful piece, and then you've obviously got the bloodline ties with his father and that whole storyline that people are still attached to. So I think as long as he stays healthy, he's going to win that award.
Joe?
I really want to say Keanu Benton, but I just don't think he's going to get on the field early enough in the season to, make enough of an impact to win the award. Whereas Porter, I think he's going to play, pretty early and pretty often. So I'm kind of with Josh on that one. It does feel like a cop-out, but just in terms of the fact he's going to play the most, he's got the bloodlines. It's a great story. And I think he's going to be pretty solid. I think he's going to be worthy of the award. But I think if Benton gets on the field early, he can really make an impact. He's got a little pass rush juice. He's a run plugger. So if he does, get on, maybe overtake some snaps from Mon Adams, gets the majority of the snaps come, let's say week 3, week 4, he could definitely push for the award. But I do think it'll ultimately end up being Porter Jr.
All right, let's play a quick and all of what I don't need a detailed explanation here, but we're going to play some quick over/under statistical games here, based on the latest DraftKings odds with a few of these players here. Let's see, passing yards for Kenny Pickett, over or under 3,300 and a half for Kenny Pickett. Josh?
Over.
Joe?
Over, sorry. Mike was muted. Over.
Okay. Passing touchdowns for Pickett. Over or under 18.5. Josh.
Over.
Joe.
Over.
Quarterback interceptions. Over or under 11.5 for Pickett. Josh.
That's an under for me.
Joe.
I think I'm going to go over.
Okay. The only thing y'all differed in there is the interceptions. Najee Harris, real quick. Rushing yards. Over or under 900.5. Josh.
That's an over for me.
Joe.
Over.
All right. And we'll do George Pickens receiving yards. Over or under 750.5 receiving yards.
That's an easy over.
Joe.
Yeah, that's definitely over.
All right. So you're saying you can make some money on taking a lot of these overs with these guys here. Let's see. Alex, you got anything else before we ask some magical questions here?
Sure. I wanted to ask, let me give you a hypothetical to kind of go to Dave's time machine to January. Let's say in January, season's over, Pittsburgh has won the AFC North. What happened for Pittsburgh to win the North? I mean, let me just, to lay that out. For Pittsburgh to win the North, they must do what? And Josh, I'll start with you.
Score more than 23 points a game. That's a number that I'm kind of keep coming back to, because they averaged 18.1 last year, which is one of the worst numbers in the NFL. I mean, you give me 23 points a game and that defense stays relatively healthy. I think that's a winning formula with how Omar Khan, Andy Weidel have shaped this roster at this point.
Joe?
Yeah, if they're winning the North, I think they're probably going to have a top 12 offense, but I'm going to go here on the defensive side of the ball. Something they've done, a number of times. But if they win, I think they're going to lead the league in sacks. I think the defense is going to be if they can disrupt Joe Burrow, if they can disrupt Lamar Jackson, even Deshaun Watson, just get them out of rhythm, get to the quarterback. If they lead the league in sacks, I think they have a decent shot to, push and probably win the North.
How does let's address the Matt Canada thing real quick here. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 not being not concerned at all, to 10 being, oh Lord, where are you on Matt Canada's role in all this in 2023?
Probably still a 6.5, 7, where I'm like, okay, it was the preseason. Everything was kind of vanilla, but there was more shots down the field. They used the middle of the field more. The explosive plays were there. Maybe it's just that year 2 confidence from these guys that, maybe part of me is thinking maybe it wasn't all Matt Canada's issue. Maybe it was that young offense just was not confident, wasn't executing well enough, but I have to see it in games that count against, starting level defenses. And I think we're going to see that right away in week 1. And like you said earlier, we're going to know about this offense and this team in general by week 6. So I've come down on the whole concern with Matt Canada from where I was coming out of the 2022 season. But I'm still not at a spot where I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. He's not an issue. So I've got to see it.
Joe, where are you on the Matt Canada concern meter?
I'm probably at a 6, I would say. The one thing that gives me confidence, it's almost like being in a contract here, is he's done. Like if he struggles this year, he's done. And he knows that. Everybody knows that. So it's almost like that desperation factor. He knows the offense has to be more explosive. He knows the playbook has to open up and expand. So, and we saw it in the preseason. Again, we have to see it in the regular season. But I think that desperation factor almost gives me a little bit of confidence out of him. Last year, I think he went conservative, maybe too conservative. And like Josh said, maybe that wasn't fully his fault. But now, year 2, Pickett wants to take more ownership of the offense, and Canada knows he has to be better. So I'm probably, I would say, right around a 6.
I mean, we're going to know everything we need to know about. We should know everything we need to know about this team by the week 6 bye, right? Because you open up against the 49ers, a tough test. You have 2 divisional games in there against the Browns, and of course against the Ravens, I think, and then mixed in there are a couple games that you one of them obviously out in Vegas against the Raiders, and then one against the Texans. And my God, if they lose that one, way things are looking right now, look out. But I mean, there's a mix of what I'm getting at is these 5 games, I feel, and really the game coming out of the bye too against the Rams. This team's first 6 games really sets up, to me, overall decent for beyond decent for them. And in other words, let's take it through the bye week and through the Rams game. We should know everything about this. What we need to know about this team by that time. Correct?
Yeah, we have to. I mean, this isn't like last year where, okay, just get to the week 9 bye. We'll figure it out after that. I think the pieces are in place. So we need to know, kind of those first 6 games and just to put a number on it, I think they got to come out of those first 6 games at a minimum of 4-2. And we have to know about this team overall, one way or another. Because I don't think there is going to be a drastic second half change from a philosophical standpoint like there was maybe last year.
Joe?
Can I? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Joe. You're fine. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I think anything less than 4-2 in those first 6 games would probably be a little bit of a cause for concern because the schedule gets tougher the second half of the year, especially the way they end the season. Those last 3 games are pretty brutal. And if they lose 3 games, that means they probably lost 2 divisional games, or they lost a game to the Raiders or the Texans, a game they really shouldn't have lost. So I think if they're under 4-2, then I'd be a little bit worried about the rest of the season. But yeah, we have to know what this team is at that point of the season. I fully agree with that.
I was going to switch gears and just ask a couple of kind of either or type questions. I want to get your guys' opinion on, kind of like Dave did. Let me start with this one, and Josh, I'll begin with you. Who has the most interceptions on the Steelers in 2023, not named Minkah Fitzpatrick? So you can't pick Minkah, who has the most picks on the Steelers squad.
I'll say DeMonte Casey. I think he's just got a nose for the football. I think we saw that the second half last year. As soon as he hit the field, he had some plays against the Saints. So if he stays healthy, I'll say him.
Joe? You're still muted, Joe.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we might have lost Joe there. Well, I'll go to Dave here and ask the question. We'll see if Joe comes back. Dave, who has the most interceptions on this team, not named Minkah Fitzpatrick?
You know what? I'm gonna point to the fence here, and I'm gonna say Joey Porter Jr. And,
ooh, yeah, nice.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, he only had the one in college there, but I think this guy is brimming with confidence right now. Hell, he went through the George Pickens gauntlet, and yeah, Pickens made some plays in him, obviously in training camp and all like that. But man, you want to talk about breaking out the proverbial iron sharpens iron and all like that. And Alex noted how much time he spent. I think this guy's confidence is just brimming. I think I think he's got the greatest shot at getting in there sooner.
Yeah, so I was with.
Sooner,
sorry, can you hear me?
Sooner rather than. Oh, I think we got Joe back. But
Joe,
can you hear us, Joe?
Yeah, can you guys get me now? I can hear you. I'm having weird issues. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah. Well, Dave can finish his thoughts, and I'm going to come back with you with the question.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, but I just once again, I just think he's brilliant. It is a weird kind of shot at there, especially with he didn't have the interception numbers coming out of college there, but I do think he's going to hit the field early and all. And I think man, that guy's long. that guy's long, and I think they're going to throw him a couple footballs. So I'll say Joey Porter Jr.
How many do you think he ends with? Are we talking like 3, 4? What do you think?
I'll go 3. I'll go 3.
Okay. Joe, most interceptions not named Minkah Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, I was with Josh. I like Casey, but I think maybe with Levi Wallace. I mean, he had 4 last season. He's shown a nose for the ball. Throughout his career, he's kind of been a guy who's shown off his ball skills, picked off a few passes. I think he might get targeted a lot this year, and I think he's going to make quarterbacks pay. I could see him 4 or 5 this season. Definitely wouldn't surprise me. I think Levi Wallace is going to be a guy for this team.
And that's a contract year too.
Answer your own question, Alex.
You know, I don't know if I'm going to go with the spicy take. I might lean into it. I'm going to do some stats predictions. I was surprised nobody said Patrick Peterson. I don't know if he'll have the outright lead in second place. He may be tied. How about TJ Watt? 2 picks last year in 10 games. Joe Burrow has to hate going against this guy. His ability to read quick game and get his hands up. You know, I think he picks off maybe 3 this year and ends up tied in second place with somebody.
It's spicy.
I was going to ask if it was a concern that nobody said Patrick Peterson.
Right.
I like the Watt one. That's calling your shot right there, Alex.
I'll say the Peterson and Watt are tied in second place behind Minka. All right, next question. We'll stay with TJ Watt here. Over under 20 sacks for him this season. And Josh, I'll start with you.
I want to say over.
I know everyone wants to say over. But will you say over?
No, I'll say he gets to like 18. Man, I would love to see the over on 20 and a half. But I'll say 18, and I think that's just because the depth that they have behind him, they'll feel more comfortable putting that on the field at times to keep him fresh.
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to go under as well. I think, they don't need him to stay on the field as much. I think as much rest as they can give him. They're going to keep him on the field, but we saw how much of a mess they were when he went down last season. They have guys like Golden and Herbig's flashed. I mean, Hayward, he gets to the quarterback. Highsmith get to the quarterback. So they got guys that can do it. I think, I wouldn't be surprised if it went over, but I ultimately don't think it'll happen. I think he'll be right around that 16, 17, 18 number that Josh threw out.
Dave?
Yeah, I as much as not that it's an indictment on him at all. I think he could obviously go over. I view him more in that 18 range as well too. And for the mere fact is, I don't think they'll need him to, that if this defensive line stays healthy, and obviously TJ is going to get a lot of attention through. I think just his mere presence alone and his ability to go over creates more sack opportunities elsewhere that he doesn't get there. So once again, not an indictment on him, but if asked to go over 20, I'm going to have to take the under.
Man, I thought someone would have taken the over on TJ Watt here. I guess I'm gonna go push. I think he gets 20 on the button, and I think he has a big week 1. I think he gets 2.5 or 3 in this 49ers matchup on Sunday.
All right.
Cam Hayward, similar question, but will he get 10 sacks? Over under 10 sacks for Cam Hayward of interior defensive linemen age 34 or older. Only 2 since 2000 have had more than 7 in a year. It's an article I've written today for Steelers Depot. Can Cam Hayward defeat Father Time? And so the only 2 that have had at least 7 at Hayward's age are John Randall and Warren Sapp. Hayward with 10 sacks at least each of the last 2 seasons. Long way to ask the question, and Joe, I'll begin with you. Over under 10 sacks for Cam Hayward.
I'm going to go over. He's shown he can do it before, and I think this year, he's talked about how he feels like he's been snubbed by analysts in the media, which doesn't really matter. But he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, not unlike Anthony Brown. But I think he's gonna do it. I think he's shown off that he can do it. He hasn't really shown any signs of slowing down. Yeah, I think he'll defeat Father Time. I think he can get to 12 this season.
Dave, will Cam Hayward hold off Father Time another year?
I'm going to take the push and go right at 10 here. He might have 3 against the Texans.
Yeah, if a certain Kendrick Green suits up.
And I think he's going to have 2 multi-sack games this year, and then just once again, kind of a byproduct of the whole Watt and the rest of you got a situation where I think a lot of these guys can eat up front there. I like the schedule that they're going to be facing with some of these guys in there as well too. So I think he hits multi-sack games twice, and I think he ends up with a dead even 10 sacks if he stays healthy.
Okay, Josh.
Yeah, I'm not doubting Cam Hayward. I can't do it. So I'm saying over. I have just the images of what he did to Donald Parham last year in the Raiders game. If Kendrick Green plays week 4, God help that Texans quarterback. Yeah, it's over. That guy has shown no signs of slowing down. And I've learned not to doubt him when it comes to anything. So that's an over for me. How long he continues to do it, no clue, but he is a freak talent, and it's definitely an over.
I'm going to create some bulletin board material for Hayward.
Oh, no.
You guys know I'm a huge fan. I'm going to take the under. He didn't hit 10 until the literal last play of last season. So I'm going to take the under slightly. I got two more questions for you guys. More yards, Deontay Johnson or George Pickens? Who has more yards this year? Joe, I'll begin with you.
Yeah, I wrote it a couple months ago. I think this is going to be the year for Pickens. I think, he's shown off that he can do more than just catch contested ball go routes. I think he's showing off, that he can run some slants, run some hitches, run some goes. There's going to be opportunities for him to create chunk plays and also get his underneath. So I think, Deontay still might be the number one receiver, but I can see Pickens getting 1,250, 1,300 yards this season and overtaking Deontay as the top dog in the offense.
Josh?
Yeah, I'm going Deontay. I think this guy's going to have a big year overall. I think obviously they're going to take more shots down the field to him. I think you're going to see him in the middle of the field a little bit more. And I think he's going to get back to kind of who he was earlier in his career from a yak perspective. I think he's a very dynamic, elusive guy with the football in his hands. And I think he's going to hit a couple big plays. So I'm going to go Deontay. I'm all in on Deontay this year.
Dave, you got to break the tie.
I think they end up within 50 yards of each other here. But I am going to go with Deontay here. I just think I think he has a few more receptions than Pickens will have overall. And while Pickens should deliver more explosive plays, I think the volume gives Deontay just a hair of an advantage there. So I would take Deontay there, but I do think that whichever way it finishes there, I think they're within 50 yards of each other receiving.
Okay. I think it'll be very, very close. I'm wrestling with it a lot. I'm going to lean Pickens right now, but I'll let you know my final stat predictions later this week. Last question for you guys, kind of a fun one. More 20-plus yard gains from scrimmage, Najee Harris or Calvin Austin? Josh, I'll start with you. More 20-plus yard gains from scrimmage this year.
I'm going to go Najee just based off the amount of work he's going to get. I know historically he doesn't do it often, and Calvin Austin can rip off a 70-yarder in the blink of an eye. But I'm going to go Najee. I think Najee's poised for a big year overall behind a rebuild offensive line. He's healthy. I think quietly he's got a chip on his shoulder a little bit and wanting to prove people wrong. So I'm going to go Najee in that one, but that is a very difficult one to lean that way.
Dave, am I putting this on a tee for you or not? Because I know you've talked about this a lot in both ends, but go ahead.
You know which way I'm going on this. It's got to be Calvin Austin. I mean, you're talking about a guy that once every 4 times in college, he touched the football, delivered an explosive play there. And we're talking flat out explosive plays, right? 20 yards or more, right?
From scrimmage, though, right? Now he's going to touch the ball probably 200 times more than Calvin Austin.
I think Calvin Austin tops him in the explosive play category.
Okay. All right, Joe, you're breaking the tie here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Calvin Austin too. I do think Najee's going to have a big year, but I think it's going to be more on those 5, 6, 7 yard runs. He's never really been like a big explosive guy, even dating back to Alabama. And that's literally Calvin Austin's role, is to create splash, create explosive plays. He's done it his whole career. So I think, volume, obviously Harris is going to get more touches, but I think Austin's going to be more explosive.
All right, fair enough. I don't know how I'm going to answer it, and I asked the question, so I'm going to pass on answering it right now.
I might be behind the 8 ball week 1. Austin might touch the ball 6 times and have 3 of them, and Najee not at all. So
They certainly need that aspect from him. And, look, Najee can help this offense by stacking up these 7-yard gains. Give me a plethora of 7-yard runs or catches and all like that. And Najee's done his part. I'm not expecting him to deliver the explosive play, but get me those 7 yards at a time there.
I do think Najee will have more explosive plays, a better O-line, maybe a better screen team. It's been a long time since Pittsburgh could run some screens, but I think they've been adamant about it during camp, and I think they'll be better at it with guys like Sayamalu out in space. All right, Dave. Any final questions? I think you want to get to maybe one big one here to wrap things up.
Yeah, let's start first and foremost. Tell me what the Steelers' record will be in 2023, and will they win a playoff game, or will they win? Is the Super Bowl window open this year?
I'm nervous to give my prediction, but I'll go out there. 12-5.
Ooh.
They're not going to win the division because I think that the Bengals are just ridiculous. They will win a playoff game, though. I haven't put together, my division predictions overall for the entire league, so I don't know how it's going to shake out, but I do think that this is a team that wins a playoff game this year, learns how to win, in January, and I think next year the Super Bowl window is open.
So you think they will be playing divisional weekend, Josh?
Yes, I do. Okay. Yes.
All right. So Josh, 12-5. Joe, what say you?
I'm really trying to talk myself into 11 wins, but I just don't know if I can put it out there. I'm confident in 10-7. And I think it might depend on how they finish the season if they go in the postseason with momentum, but I do think they're going to win a playoff game, even if it's an upset. I think this is the year. They have the talent. They're so motivated to do it. TJ Watt's never won a playoff game with the Steelers. I think they're going to pull it off one way or another. 10-7, yes to a playoff game. Super Bowl, no, but I think they'll make it to at least divisional weekend.
Okay. And Dave, I'm guessing we're going to save our predictions for Friday's show.
We'll tease the people a couple more shows here and deliver that on Wednesday, I think.
All right. Good deal. Any final thoughts? Any final questions, Dave, you wanted to ask the guys?
Yeah, just, how far have you come from the way this team has looked, coming out of the 2022 season and until now? How much have you been swayed? I mean, we talk all the time about, man, let's keep a balance here. Let's be as objective as possible. But I mean, you stack up what I would like to call a damn near perfect offseason. This team, how much has your overall outlook for this team changed since last year's Super Bowl?
Yeah, I've really had to kind of check myself in the last few weeks of like, okay, let's take a step back, reset here. I've been swayed significantly, honestly. I mean, at the end of last year, before Pickett, kind of had that magic late in the year against the Raiders and the Ravens, I was kind of just like, this ceiling is so limited on this team. And then the initial hours into free agency, you lose Cameron Sutton, which I thought there was no chance he was going anywhere. That kind of took the air out of the balloon. But then what Con and Weidl did with this roster, I mean, free agency was really solid. The draft was, it's still hard to imagine that draft went as well as it did for the Steelers. And then everything they've done, leading up to training camp, how they've looked in training camp and preseason. I mean, I've been swayed significantly, and there's an excitement, and I think it circles around one guy. And when you feel you have a guy at the quarterback position, I think that expectation and that overall excitement is hard to temper in a sense. And that's where I'm at. I mean, I go back. Jonathan Heitrader wrote an article a couple weeks ago and used a tweet that I had after the Steelers selected Pickett. I was concerned when Kevin Colbert was up there talking about Pickett's floor and how they liked his floor. And it concerned me that they were talking about his floor and not his ceiling. And here we are a week away from him starting his second year in the NFL. He's unquestionably the guy at the position for this franchise. And I've come really far on him. I don't really have a ton of concerns overall. And it's just, I think that's where my anticipation, excitement, hope for this team is right now, and it's because of number 8 under center.
Joe, how far have you come, or have you?
Yeah, I've come very, very far. When they drafted Pickett, I just remember I was not happy. I thought he was going to be average. He's a guy, you can build around him, maybe make the playoffs a couple of years, but that was what he was going to be. I think he's shown that he can be a little bit more than that. He's saying all the right things, at least, and the way he looked this preseason definitely provides some confidence, at least for this season going forward. And then the way this offseason went was literally probably as good as it could have gone. All of our complaints earlier were relatively minor in the scheme of things. So I really think that Con and White will have taken an aggressive approach to building the roster to make them into a team that can really start to compete for Super Bowls next season, next couple of years, become a top flight team in the AFC. And that's not something I thought they would be in Kenny Pickett's second, third going forward from where he is in his career now. So I've changed my thoughts on this team and where they are now and in the future quite a bit in the last couple of seasons, and especially in this offseason.
All right.
Let's hope.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Let's hope the good feelings continue as we get ready for week 1 against the 49ers Sunday at 1:00 at Acrisure Stadium. Josh and Joe, thank you guys so much for being on. I'm sure we'll have you guys back on the podcast throughout the season. You can follow Josh on Twitter at @ByJoshCarney. Follow Joe on Twitter at JClark1233. Thank you guys so much for being on, and we're going to talk to you soon. And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Josh Carney and Joe Clark. Be sure to follow those guys on Twitter. And as we said, we'll try to get Jonathan Heitritter and some others on the podcast a little bit later in the year. Really good discussion there. Good takes, good thoughts, I thought, from Joe and Josh.
Yeah, look, we don't, probably not near enough. Don't have a, hopefully we'll add more of these kind of round tables in, throughout the season than we normally do. But, and obviously we work with these guys daily. But it is good to kind of get some of these kind of burning questions, if you will. And, the question I had about, how much has your perception, overall perception changed about this team? I thought that was an interesting question. I think all of us had kind of hot takes or point to fence kind of takes, more so than others. But I think the general takeaway from both of them and having them on was the fact that, they're more excited about this 2023 team than let's say they were, after last year's Super Bowl. And to me, there's good reason for that to be the case.
Sure. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of reason to be excited. I knew whenever I asked you about Austin versus Najee, you were going to take Austin in terms of explosive plays. How much would I have to lower that on Najee's end for you to take Harris? If I said Austin 20+ yard plays from scrimmage versus Harris 15+ yard plays from scrimmage, would you still go Austin, or would you switch to Najee Harris?
I would need Najee to be at 10, I think, for 10 yards explosive plays.
Fair enough.
And look, people have once again, I don't hate the player. I like the player. It's just, from an explosive play aspect, it's just he's going to have to show me. And look, I will even accept 10 yards as an explosive play. I do think that the ability is there for him to stack those 6-7 yard or more runs. And if he does that, this offense will look a lot different. It's already going to look different, we hope. But you want to talk about maximizing the value of the offense by having someone like Najee up his percentage of runs or pass receptions that gain 6 or 7 or more yards. I mean, you're talking about a lot of second and short situations potentially in that. And once again, 20 yards, yes, is technically an explosive play. When it comes to runs, it's as Mike Tomlin likes to say, it's universal that it's 10 yards. But okay, I promise not to ding Najee Harris every time if he gets 19 yards. I will applaud that. It hasn't been in his nature, even dating back to college, to deliver those kind of plays. But if you want to take, I'm a heavy buyer on Calvin Austin. I think he's gonna deliver his fair share of explosive plays, and they need that to happen too.
They do, in the worst way. I thought your question to the guys about Matt Canada was interesting. Where would you describe your feeling of Matt Canada this year? Would you say confident, indifferent, uncertain, pessimistic? How would you describe any feelings you currently have towards Matt Canada?
I am kind of indifferent to it, at least to start the season, because I feel Kenny's got. I feel the two are on the same wavelength now. I do feel like, they wanted to protect Kenny more from himself and his lack of NFL action. Now I'm not defending Canada and all that, because I obviously think Canada could have done a better job. But where I'm going with this is, I think Kenny is mature and confident enough now to have some conversations with Matt, saying, "Look, this is what I'd like to do. This is what we need to do." I think the two can have a better working relationship than they had than just a rookie and his first year offensive coordinator there. I think it's up to Canada to lower his ego to accept a lot more input from Kenny this year. So I'm more indifferent and willing to go on either side of that based on obviously what we see in these first 5 or 6 games here. But I don't want to say I'm in no way confident in that. My confidence lies more with the quarterback this year than it does with the offensive coordinator, if that makes sense.
Sure. And the talent which surrounds him, which obviously has been upgraded. Yeah, I think Pittsburgh was intentionally hyper conservative last year. And that was even a directive that probably was above Canada's head. That probably came down from Mike Tomlin. We don't want to turn the ball over. We're going to be super, super conservative. Pittsburgh can and should and needs to open things up this year. And I think they will. But in terms of my feeling on Canada, it truly is. I try to be as much as possible, just blank slate, just etch a sketch and erase the whole thing, the whole messy picture, and start anew. Because I think Joe said it well. No excuses. The time is now for Canada to produce. It is put up or shut up, and that's the bottom line.
And look, if he has, if this offense looks good the first 3-4 games or what have you, they have to still have the ability to not rest on their laurels there and continue to manipulate this offense and progressively build on top of everything. And that would probably be one of my biggest concerns is, okay, they come out of first 4, 5, 6 games looking good. Are they going to be able to stack onto that?
Sure.
Or are teams going to be able to catch on to that?
It's a fair question, but hopefully Pittsburgh finds themselves in those shoes that we can talk about come the bye week and say things are going well. Can they continue that and carry that over? And if that's the case, then that's a better situation they've been in for most starts to seasons of recent nature.
Right. Now, without a doubt, I mean, if they don't get in there and win a playoff game, and even if they do get in there and win a playoff game, if it still looks ugly, he's going to be out of a job.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, Dave, we'll wrap things up and do so with a couple of reader emails to close out today's show.
All right, let's do that. I think we got a couple in the email machine here. We'll start with Nicholas Gooden says, do you think it's possible that at some point this season we could see Dan Moore and Broderick Jones actively rotating at left tackle every other drive or something like that? He says it seems like a bad idea, but interested in your thoughts. I'm not going to sit here and say unequivocally that we won't see that, but to me, I would think you'd want to get the age-old thing. If you have two left tackles, you don't have one.
Yep.
If you make a move to take Dan Moore off that field at left tackle and put Broderick Jones in there, then my personal opinion would be to roll with it from there. Now, once again, I don't want to unequivocally say you won't see any, but it doesn't fit what they've done in the past or anything like that. So I would be surprised if we saw a rotating by every other drive or 3 series here and 3 series there for one game, for one game, one guy over another. I would be surprised if we saw that.
I can't answer, as you said, unequivocally for what the team will do. I sure hope they don't do that. If you're getting to the point where you want to play Broderick Jones, just start Broderick Jones full time. And the rotation's not good for anybody, especially a rookie trying to, get his feet wet and get a rhythm for this thing. I really despise the idea of in-game rotations like that. So I would not expect that. As you said, they don't traditionally do that. This is a bit of a different situation with a first-round lineman who's sitting, which is uncommon in Pittsburgh. And probably most places, but I would expect that you're going to have one guy until you don't, and you'll make a change. That change will be made fully.
All right. Dustin Rush writes in, first of all, thank the two of you and the entire Depot crew for the incredible content this summer. If the two of you could relive a single moment in Steelers history, what would it be? Also, P.S. Alex is way off base with the Journey Over Queen take.
Ooh, still getting that.
Look, I would have liked to. I would like to say that I was there for the Immaculate Reception. You know.
Yeah, I mean that's an easy one, I think, for sure. I mean, to give a different answer, I think that's probably the one most people who weren't there. And it sounds like there were about 200,000 Steeler fans I met that were at the Immaculate Reception, funny enough. But I'm very much the old school traditionalist and historian. I try to be with Pittsburgh. So how about their very first game in 1933 against the New York Giants? It was probably not a fun one to watch. Pittsburgh losing 23-2, only points there on a safety off of a block punt, but just to see the first game to now, I think would be just a cool historical perspective.
I second place would probably be their fourth Super Bowl, win against the Rams, because I was very in tune as a young Steelers fan at that point. Not that I wasn't before then, but I mean, I was middle school at the time, and I was all in everything Steelers, obviously, by that point and all like that. And I have a lot of memories from that Super Bowl and all at that age and all like that. So if there's one Super Bowl I win that I could say that I was wish I would have been present for, it would probably have been their fourth Super Bowl.
And to give a bit more recent answer than what I gave, how about the 2008 title game against Baltimore? Troy's pick six to put Pittsburgh into the Super Bowl. I think that would have been just the environment. I mean, they said it's the loudest that stadium has ever been. That would have been really, really special.
All right, that's all we got in the email machine, Alex. And you have a couple announcements for live stream and all like that.
Yeah, I should mention that, again, this is being recorded Sunday, airing Monday. There will be no live stream tonight, just from a scheduling standpoint for week 1, week 2. I think it's better for us to have the live stream next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, post 49ers game, to discuss that. And that way we're not going to have a confliction a week after that with the Browns game, which is the Monday nighter. So no live stream today, Monday. We'll have one after the 49ers game. That'll be, I guess, on the 11th will be the live stream.
All right, and shout out once again to Josh Carney and Joe Clark for sitting in today on the roundtable. Unfortunately, Jonathan Heitritter's moving out to California. I got to have breakfast with him Sunday morning there. He came through Vegas on his way there, so it was good to catch up with him. And we hope to have him part of future roundtables like we've had him on in the past there. So shout out to those guys once again, Josh Carney and Joe Clark for sitting in today. And Alex and I will be back on Wednesday. We'll have our predictions for the upcoming season. Start getting you ready for a little bit more for Steelers versus 49ers in week 1 Sunday. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button upper right navigational bar and follow the directions that way. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.